Hello everyone, my name is Liz Craig. In 2023, to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Society for One Place Studies, the Society of Genealogists held an online 10-day event called All About That Place, which celebrated place-based research. During the event, 10 talks a day were released every day for 10 days. The event proved so popular that it was repeated in 2024. However, as the Society of Genealogists have been busy with a huge project to revamp their website, the decision was reluctantly made to pause All About That Place this year and do a smaller social media version. All About That Place will return again next year. In the absence of a full-blown All About That Place, the Society for One Place Studies thought we would contribute to the Society of Genealogists' mini All About That Place by releasing a new video each day on our YouTube channel. We hope you enjoy them. Whether you want to do a one-place study or whether you just want to find out about the history of a particular area, I hope you'll take a few ideas away from this talk. In family history, we often look very much at our own ancestors in isolation. We might look for some old postcards of the place where they came from, maybe even buy a book about it if there is one. But what do we really know about the places our ancestors lived in? Local history often focuses on major events, significant structures or architecture, and the more notable residents of a place. The Society for One Place Studies describes one place studies as being where family history and local history unite. So why would you do a one place study? I like this quote from the One Place Studies directory. A one place study brings together both the local history and family history dimensions to give a much fuller picture of what life was like in that place and why families came and went. And the context this brings can be quite incredible. As Eric White said, my wow moment is still realising just how much I can add to my family history research through my one place study. That epiphany is still dawning on me. A one place study is a study of records that track the people of a community through time. You'll already be familiar with many of the records used, as they're the same as those used by genealogists: church registers, censuses, voters' lists, land records, tax lists, etc. Doing a one-place study might also help you break down a brick wall, and we've all experienced that situation where two people are born around the same time in the same village and you need to work out which is yours. So, what is a one-place study? A one-place study can be anywhere with a geographical boundary: a house, street, hamlet, village, town, cemetery or war memorial. Our registered studies even include ships and a railway station. My own studies include a village, a street study and a home for inebriate women. Each study is different, as every place and researcher are different. And there are as many methods of doing one-place studies as there are people doing them, but don't let that put you off. I'm about to give you some ideas. When I first registered my one-place study, I gathered a lot of data in a rather chaotic way, but I wasn't really sure what to do with it. The Society for One Place Studies encourages people to write an in-depth report about their place, and you can see some examples on the website. This is entirely optional, and I still haven't written mine, but I have used the headings from the Society's in-depth report template to formulate a plan for my one-place study. I also read Janet Few's book, Putting Your Ancestors in Their Place, which adds more detail to some of these topics. I drew up a one-place study action plan, which I annotated with ideas and record sets that are specific to the place I'm studying, so I'm ready with a brief plan whenever I decide to cover that particular topic. And the topics on the template you can see on the slide. So geography is the location of the study, the physical geography. Was it near the sea? Was it inland? Was it mountainous? Were there mineral deposits there of coal or tin which could have affected local industry? What was the population of the place over time? What was the distribution of people across the area, if relevant? You know, some places might be quite a sort of scattered village, other places are, you know, perhaps more centralised. What was the impact of major historical events? For example, war. Did many men go off to fight? If it was a rural area, were horses taken for the war effort? And the economy. Think about an economic overview of the place over the years. What were the key industries and occupations, and did these change over time? Think about places of worship. What denominations were they? Were they Church of England, nonconformist? Were they both? What years were they operational? Do you have any statistics on who may have attended those particular institutions? Who were the key clerical figures? And thinking about community life, what activities did the community do as a whole, or perhaps in groups, for example, markets or fairs? Were there any annual events like carnivals or regattas? Why might people live in the place or visit there? And what did people do for leisure on a daily basis? Were there any reading rooms, or were there any local clubs? Think about the institutions in the village as well. Any schools or hospitals? Were there any landmarks, any businesses or farms that had been there for many years? And think about travel and migration. What were the transport systems like over time? How did people get to and from the place you're studying, and why? Were there reasons why people would have come to that particular place, and are there any reasons why people would have moved away from that place? By families and notable people, I don't necessarily mean famous people, but perhaps you might want to look at prominent people or enduring surnames in the place you're studying, or perhaps key families who lived there for hundreds of years. And other just covers anything. If there's any other aspect of your one place study that you'd like to study, then just go for it. Enjoy. For me, the most important thing is to choose somewhere that you feel passionate, curious and excited about researching. One place studies are very addictive, so you'll be spending a lot of time researching your chosen place. You might have ancestors from there or you might not. My places have chosen me rather than the other way round. And you don't need to live near your place to research it, but you do need to think about which records you'll need and how you'll access them. Search out any information you may already have about your place. Check what's been done already. Online you can check the Society for One Place Studies website, the One Place Studies directory, or Wikitree's One Place Study projects. Of course, not everyone has an online presence, so it might be worth contacting a museum or society covering the local area of your chosen place to see if anybody is already researching it. Choose wisely. You can limit the scope of your one place study by restricting the area or the time span involved, because you can always expand later if you decide you want to study a bit more. Establish who and how many people lived in the place. Size matters. I once read that the optimum size for a study was 200 inhabitants. Sudbourne is over twice that size, but I just accept that it will take me a little bit longer. Think about what your goals are for your study, what you want to find out. Some studies run into thousands of inhabitants, and perhaps for these studies there'll be less family reconstruction but more statistical analysis. Look for photos and postcards. Try the various online auction sites for postcards, and you might find some more modern ones on the Geograph website. Look at maps and the local landscape. What are the surroundings of the place? Is it isolated, rural, in a city? What were the nearest places? And what would the transport links have been in and out of your place? See if you can identify any older buildings in the place and research their history. And set some goals for your study. Mine is to study the people that my ancestors or local residents would have seen and interacted with daily, the people who lived in the village itself, and to find out what daily life was like in the village. And I'd also like to establish the connections between families, so I'm creating a family tree of historical residents. I started by collecting the basics for my one place studies: the census, baptisms, marriages and burials, and any images I could find. And previous one place studies have taught me that it helps me to have a little sort of mini project to get me started. So as well as the transcription projects that are listed on the left, I'm also transcribing the school logbooks, and I'm doing a project to examine causes of death in the village. I'll give you a very brief walkthrough of part of my study as an example. The map inset in the circle shows you that Sudbourne, my one place study, is on the east coast of Suffolk in England. It's a small rural village, and until the early 1920s, along with 4 other villages, formed part of the Sudbourne estate. My grandmother Iris and her father Arthur Keir were both born in Sudbourne. The houses they were born in are still there. Although it's not a large village, 3 branches of my family, Keir, Raymer and Meadows, lived in Sudbourne, and it's the reason I'm interested in exploring the familial connections linking Sudbourne people to those living in nearby villages. Sudbourne is a rural scattered village near the Suffolk coast, about 20 miles roughly east of Ipswich. Adjoining parishes are Orford, Jedgrave, Chilsford, Icon and Oldborough. Since 1801, Sudbourne's population has ranged from 441 to 601, but following its evacuation in 1942, the population has been in the 300s. Sudbourne's early history shows evidence of Saxon and Romano-British settlements. The stately home Sudbourne Hall was home to various landowners over the years, who were both landlord and employer for most of Sudbourne's residents. There was a workhouse in Sudbourne, but it was sold in 1855. Sudbourne had 3 shops, a post office, blacksmiths, a pub and several farms. Historically, it has always been a very agricultural area. The Church of England church is All Saints, and a Baptist chapel was founded there in 1863. During the Second World War in 1942, Sudbourne, along with the neighbouring village of Icon, was evacuated after being requisitioned by the War Department for use in tank training exercises. I'm keen to collect images to illustrate the history I'm uncovering of the village. Unfortunately, there aren't that many historical images for Sudbourne, but by looking in the archives, searching online auction sites, Google searches and membership of local Facebook groups, I have found some. While researching my family history, I noticed that postcards are usually taken of the same view by somebody standing in the same position. I discovered that by looking for photos of public events, I could get a different view of the same place, affording me a glimpse of buildings not usually seen. Also look up for magic lantern slides, as they may offer an alternative view of your place. If you're really lucky, you might find photographs of residents. One lovely lady who contacted me via a Facebook group sent me photos that her grandmother had taken when she worked as a teacher in Sudbourne in the early 1920s. You may be able to work out which property someone was living in using a combination of old maps and census returns. The 1910 Valuation Act tells you who the owners and occupiers of property and land were in 1910. Pictured are the 1910 Valuation Act records for what was Sudbourne Post Office. The assessment number, in red on the map, corresponds directly with the assessment number in the field book. This entry tells us that the post office was occupied by George Raymer and owned by William Chaplin. The building was brick and slate. On the ground floor there was a shop, 2 sitting rooms, a kitchen and storeroom, and on the first floor there were 5 bedrooms. I'll transcribe the 1910 Valuation Act records for Sudbourne and we'll create an interactive map showing who owned and who occupied each property. If your place, like mine, is agricultural, the tithe records will be of interest to you. Tithe records, maps and accompanying apportionment books were created by a government survey following the Tithe Commutation Act of 1836 to convert a traditional 10th part tax on agricultural produce into a monetary payment, or tithe rent charge. They consist of tithe maps, which are detailed maps of individual parishes, and apportionments, which are reference books or schedules that correspond to the maps and list the landowners and occupiers of each plot of land within the parish. The 1939 Farm Survey was a government initiative launched during World War II to increase domestic food production and support post-war planning by assessing the conditions of farms. I've photographed the school logbooks for Sudbourne from 1876 to 1942, 66 years worth of school history. I'm transcribing them and will add the transcriptions to my website. The school logbooks are a fascinating lens through which to view village life. Each week the teacher would write a paragraph summarising the week, which would always end with an average attendance figure for the week. Subjects covered in the curriculum are listed, and local events, such as the one pictured, are mentioned. Tuesday being the day set apart for celebrating the Jubilee of Her Majesty Queen Victoria, the school was given a holiday. Attendance was greatly affected by the weather. Some children had to walk some distance to school, and if the weather was wet or snowy, attendance was poor. Illnesses such as measles would also affect attendance and even resulted in the school being closed for a week. and the logbooks also record the coming and going of staff. I store my data in spreadsheets because if I'm investing a lot of time in a project, I want to be sure that the software isn't going to become obsolete over time. I use Microsoft Excel, but free versions are available. I'm a very basic user, but spreadsheets help me sort and filter my data. So, for example, in my baptisms, marriages and burials spreadsheet, I can filter to look for a specific surname. In my census spreadsheets, I can filter by column titles such as surname, street or occupation. I find them very flexible and versatile. And they have another use. Statistics aren't for everyone, but I love them. They tell me a lot about my place, and they help me compare my place to others. If you need convincing that stats can be interesting, have a look at Kim Baldacchino's website about her one-place study, Bratton Clavelli. A project I'm currently undertaking for Sudbourne is partly inspired by a presentation that Jane Harris did for a previous All About That Place, entitled 70 Years and 10, Did My Ancestor Die Young or Old?, in which Jane pulls together a variety of sources to establish how typical her 3 times great-grandfather's age at death was, and whether the place he lived had affected his age at death. Using spreadsheets to compile information about people's causes of death, ages at death, occupations and various other information facilitates easier analysis of the information. As for other data storage, I want to tell the stories of historical residents, and I write these stories offline using Word documents ready to add to my blog when complete, and I keep a list of blog posts that I want to write. I have folders for images of each census, certificates, deeds, electoral rolls, maps, pictures of Sudbourne and wills, and I ensure that any physical items, such as photos or postcards, are kept in acid-free storage. Here's an example of some simple analysis you can do if you keep your data in spreadsheets. As children left school at age 14 in 1921, I looked at males in Sudbourne aged 14 and over. I didn't use a cut-off age, as all males over 14 were listed as having an occupation, though admittedly the oldest, aged 82, was retired. 58% were engaged in agriculture: farmers, agricultural labourers, gardeners, shepherds, gamekeepers and carters. 14% were trades and skilled manual workers: carpenters, blacksmiths, wheelwrights, bootmakers or painters. 8% were involved in estate work, either estate managers, foresters, bailiffs, caretakers or overseers, and 5% in domestic service, such as servants or footmen. If you compare this with an analysis I did of another village, a bustling town with a high street and market, you can see the value in being able to compare your data. Admittedly, I've classified the occupations on this slide slightly differently, but you can immediately see that there's a much bigger diversity of occupations than there was in Sudbourne. Only 20% of people here worked in farming, 36% had trades or were skilled manual workers, and there's a much greater variety of shopkeepers. And here the other section includes a tea dealer, watchmaker, somebody involved in milling, cabinet makers and excise officers. This is a quick overview of the main news sources I've used in my one-place study. Censuses obviously are the main ones we mentioned earlier. Trade and street directories are a great way to ensure that you're researching the correct property and establish changes of occupancy and find out more about the local area, local businesses. Newspapers are a mine of information on all aspects of a one-place study. 1910 Valuation Act we've mentioned. Some of these records you'll already be familiar with through your family history research, and the beauty of a one-place study is that it brings all these sources together to create a fuller picture of an area. Current residents can be a great source of information, especially if they've lived in the area for some time. You might want to look at some local history books for some historical content. And remember that this current era will be history one day, so when houses come up for sale, I always save a copy of the estate agent's particulars as a snapshot of that property in time. You can search local Facebook groups for information and also post about your research. Spread the word on social media too and make it easy for people to find you. And you might want to set up a website. It doesn't have to be anything flashy, but just a simple free website just to give yourself an online presence so that people have got a way of contacting you. Online trees are a great way to publicise your studies. I create offline and online trees to share information and to make myself available to others who may have information to share with me. I have a tree on Ancestry which I download and back up regularly to my offline tree. Family Search have recently developed a user-owned tree feature known as CET, which allows users to create and maintain a family tree and to choose if other users can view and edit it. It's completely separate from their global family tree and offers similar features to the global family tree, including record hints, photo upload and source documentation. Wikitree offers hosting for various projects, including One Place Studies. So I've told you about my research into school logbooks, some occupational analysis, how I'm working out who lived where, and my collection of images. But this is just a brief presentation and I don't have time to cover all aspects of my study. So I'm revisiting this list very quickly from the Society for One Place Studies, just to remind you of the types of thing you might want to discover or research about your place. Of course, you may think of other subjects. We've probably all done some research into friends' family trees. Even though the people we research aren't related to us, we enjoy the research process. With hindsight, for me, this was the first sign that I needed to start a one-place study. If I was going to research people who weren't related to me, they might as well be people whose lives would shed light on my ancestors. The reason I'm so passionate about my one-place studies is that it gives me an insight into my ancestors' lives that I wouldn't get any other way. I know which properties they lived in, I know who their neighbours were, I know when the fairs were, who they brought their groceries and clothes from, and what social activities there were in the village. I've learned about some of the local scandals, crimes and tragedies, and I've even learned about local traditions and folklore, such as the wood woes pictured here. These are all things that my ancestors would have known. As a result of doing a one-place study, I have a much more well-rounded view of my ancestors' lives than I ever would have had from reading a history book. By knowing a little of what my ancestors knew, I know them better. There are 2 online One Place Studies courses. First Steps to a One Place Study, which is a 5-week online course with Pharos tutors, and the second one is Organising a One Place Study, which is a 7-week online course with the National Institute for Genealogical Studies. There's a very useful guide to One Place Studies which you can download from the Society for One Place Studies website. Janet Few has written 2 excellent books on One Place Studies. 10 Steps to a One Place Study provides you with 10 clear steps to get you started. A new edition of Putting Your Ancestors in Their Place was published this year and is a deeper dive into One Place Studies. The Society for One Place Studies is without a doubt the friendliest and most enthusiastic family history society I've ever belonged to. The membership fee of £10 UK is very reasonable. Currency conversions from the UK pounds on this slide were correct at the time of recording. Membership is free to students under 21 and there is no extra charge to register a study. But if you do register a study, we have only 2 rules: research with integrity and have fun. There are lots of resources available in the members area on our website, which I'm sure you'll find really helpful. And our monthly Zoom webinars, which are timed to suit a worldwide audience, cover a wide range of global aspects of One Place Studies, as does our quarterly journal Destinations, which contains articles written by people worldwide at all stages of their One Place Studies. There's something there for everyone. Our annual conference is a fantastic day, packed with presentations from a variety of amazing speakers, and is free to members. If you want to find out a bit more about us, then why not have a look at our website? You might even find that somebody's already doing a study of your ancestral area. And did I mention how friendly the Society is? Come and have a chat to us on social media. We're most active on Blue Sky. Our weekly One Place Wednesday day-long chat has One Placers popping in and out throughout the day, updating us on their studies, asking questions, or participating in our monthly blogging and social media prompts. We also have a Facebook page and group, and we have a presence on YouTube and Instagram. Thanks so much for listening to this talk. I love talking about One Place Studies, so if you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me either via my email address or on social media. and you're welcome to follow the progress of my Sudbourne One Place study via the website or via the Facebook page. Thanks again. Bye bye.